Today I have a 2007 Jeep Liberty with the 3.7 liter 6-cylinder engine, and I've been trying to diagnose a check engine light. Let's see if I can show you what I've got going on here. So the code I'm getting is the P0300 random multi-cylinder misfire, and that's the only code I'm getting. I'm not getting codes for any other individual cylinders, so made it kind of tough to diagnose. The first thing I did was I just took it into the mechanic and thought maybe they could find the problem quicker, but they turned around and said they couldn't find any issues and they couldn't get the code to reappear. And so I got it back, and it took several hundred miles and the code popped up again by itself. So I've been trying to solve it on my own, going through some of the possible things that can cause that code to pop up. So the first thing I did was replaced all the spark plugs and coils. It was probably due for that anyway. And of course, a few hundred miles, everything's fine, and all of a sudden the code pops up again. So going through the stuff online, checked everything that I could think of. But this last time the code came up, it also did what I'd call a shudder, where the engine kind of wanted to stall a little bit, and then the idle was really funny for 30 seconds to a minute, and then finally came out of it. And so one of the issues with a funny idle is a vacuum leak. So today I'm going to do a leak test on the vacuum system and see if I can find something that's causing the problem, and maybe that'll solve my my check engine light. So I'm going to get set up here and show you what I'm doing with a vacuum leak test. Okay, so what I've got, I went ahead and purchased a pressure smoke tester. They're not too expensive. You can get them different styles. The one I bought has a pump included with it to generate the pressure. You can get some less expensive ones that hook into your air compressor. You just need to make sure you turn the pressure way down. I think this one only generates like 1 psi, but you put fluid in there, let it warm up. I've had it warming up here for a few minutes, and then we'll turn the pump on. The other thing I had to purchase is a set of adapters that'll let me connect into different areas. So what I'm going to do is go right into the intake. So I removed the air intake hose and seal that up, so that way I'll be checking the intake manifold and anything that's attached to that. And it may be necessary to do this test several different places, but let's go ahead and turn this on. So the pump is now on. Should be blowing smoke into the intake, and let's hopefully see some smoke coming from an area that it shouldn't be coming from. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this very well. I'm going to get some light down in there, but I don't know if you can see the wisps of smoke coming from the back of the engine. And they appear to be coming, I believe that's the EGR valve. Should not be leaking smoke like that, so that tells me that's where my leak is. So hopefully if I replace that, my problem will go away. But that worked pretty well to find that problem. One thing to be aware of, if you read the instructions on these smoke machines, they tell you to be in a ventilated area. Breathing in that smoke's not recommended, so I'm going to stay back for a little bit and let that clear out. But I'm going to go ahead and get parts ordered and replace that, and we'll see if that takes care of my problem. So the original topic of this video was just going to be showing how to find a vacuum leak. It just happened that mine was the EGR valve. I wasn't necessarily going to show the replacement of that, but I ran into some problems, so I thought I'd point those out. So I've got the the new one started to be installed. But one of the big problems I ran into was getting the bolts out. I'll show you here on the old one. So these bolts are a T45 Torx, and they were stuck in there pretty good. You can see this. So there's the tip of the Torx bit I used, and it rounded it right off. And this is supposed to be an impact grade, so they were stuck in there pretty tight. I would recommend soaking them down with penetrating oil as soon as possible. Do it multiple times to let that soak in. And then the other thing is, to get that out of there, there's a EGR tube. So this goes into the intake and then down, bolts onto the side of the valve. Take this out first so you can get to those bolts. And then the other thing, you see this little blue gasket where it inserts into the intake. It was really loose, so I went ahead and replaced that gasket as well. So a couple little tips and tricks for that. Also, with putting the new one in, I was having a hard time finding torque specs for that. So what I ended up doing is just looking up standard torque specs for the size bolts. So this is the bolt for that tube. A lot of times you can find the grading of the bolt on the head. This one doesn't have it. It's all rusted over, but the new bolt does show. I don't know if you can see that. It's so this one's an 8.8, which is a metric grade, class 8.8. And then the other bolts, so these bolts being a socket head type bolt, don't necessarily have grading. What I found is most of the time they're more along the lines of a class 10.9 grade for metric bolt. So what I ended up doing is just going to a bolt manufacturer's website and finding standard torque specs for those size bolts. So the little bolt was a 6mm, and the torque spec that I found for the class 8.8 was 8 foot-pounds, which is 96 inch-pounds. And then the Torx head bolt is an 8mm, and that one being a socket head, I used the class 10.9 torque spec, which I found was 21 foot-pounds, which turns out to be 252 inch-pounds. And I've already put those bolts in, and that torque spec seemed very reasonable. It, felt like the right amount of force to put on that bolt to put it in. So that's what I'm going to use to go by. So if you can't find bolt specs specifically for your vehicle, I would probably recommend just trying to find a general torque spec for that size and grade of bolt that you're using. So I'm going to finish installing this, and then we'll do another vacuum test and with the smoke machine, and hopefully that fixed the problem. So okay, so I've got the smoke machine hooked back up like I had it before to the intake manifold. It's been warming up, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the pump on. That'll build up some pressure in the system, and we'll keep an eye on the EGR valve back there and make sure I don't see any smoke coming out. Or the other possibility is there could be another leak, so we'll want to keep an eye out for that as well. So I'm going to pause here for a minute and give that a chance to pump up. Okay, so I've let this run for a couple minutes. Do not see any signs of smoke coming from back here, so that's exactly what I want to see. And then I have been looking around the rest of the engine, do not see any other signs of leak, so that tells me I'm good to go. So I'm going to clear the code out of the computer, and we'll take this for a drive. Thanks for watching. If this helped you out, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks.